fantastic panel next. Again, led by Mr. Mitch Zenger, the CEO founder of Synctrix, who has been with us in the past, and I'm so glad to welcome him. We had an opportunity to see his lovely cat last time, so I do hope she's not slept yet. So I can see that. Mitch. Thank you so very much, Mitch. I do understand it's too late for you, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, and we have a superb panel that has been put together. I don't wish to take away your thunder, but I just wanted to say a big hi to Dana. How are we doing, Dana?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. It's been more than 6 months we've been trying to communicate, and I must say thank you finally for being on our stage, Dana. I think we've been talking to you in your previous role as the CHRO of the central bank to now the founder of Whitebox HR. How are you doing? How is everything with you?
Doing very well and very happy to be here with my fellow panelists today.
Thank you so much, Dana. Hi, Vinay. How are you doing?
Thank you.
The co-founder of Talbrum. Talbrum is one of our sponsors, folks. Talbrum is the diamond sponsor, and thank you for your participation, Talbrum and Vinay.
Thank you.
Other founders. Thank you so very much. We have the flamboyant John Hansen, who we all saw yesterday. Welcome from down under. It's too late for you, I guess. Thank you for being here. John is the VP of HCM and Cloud HCM practice for Oracle. Oracle is our title sponsor for this event, and thanks to you, John, and thanks to Oracle.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Thank you. And we again have an old friend, Mr. Kaiser Nassim, who Helen has been talking to for quite some time. And Kaiser, thank you so very much for being here. Kaiser has been all over the world, and I think right now he's pivoted out of Dubai. Am I right, Kaiser?
That is correct, and thanks a lot. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I think the last time we spoke, you were in Switzerland, or
I was in Moscow, I believe.
Moscow, yeah.
Maybe at the World Economic Forum, maybe that's where we spoke. So that was
Right,
January this year.
so. Yeah, thank you so very much. We have a fantastic panel. I would leave it to Mitch to sort of take this further. Appreciate to everybody for being here. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today, and looking forward to this panel discussion. I think it's a topic of passion for all of us as far as talking about the HR tech field and what's going on. To kind of give a quick intro to the field, I think we all are very aware that the HR tech market is booming. Lots of new startups, lots of new technology. Lots of big companies coming out with new offers and sort of rethinking their whole platforms and bringing it into much more of a more modern look and feel. Lots of acquisitions, mergers, etc. going on. So lots of changes happening. So looking forward to the opportunity to get a group together and just kind of talk about some of these changes, talk about what we're looking forward to, etc. To start off, I just wanted to go around and just do a 1-minute quick intro. Just tell a little bit about yourself, your background, kind of what you do and why you're interested and passionate in this space. Who wants to start?
I can go ahead. So hi, everyone. I'm Dina. I'm a former Chief Human Resources Officer. I've been an HR practitioner for well over 15 years. And as of earlier this year, I've launched a tech startup called Whitebox HR. Our main focus is to provide predictive insights to organizations to help them make data-driven decisions. And we do that through machine learning, organization network analysis, and people science.
Hi, I'm Vinay Dalal. I'm an out-and-out HR professional, risen through the ranks, but with love for technology. So I've been working in Computer Science Corporation, Reliance Industries, in retail, in Geo, and Victor Technologies. So it has been out-and-out HR experience distilled into HR tech, into a product, HRMS product, Talbrum, Talent Celebrum.
John, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, hi everyone. Great to be back again for today's sessions. I've been an HR practitioner now for 35 years, and the last 21 of those with Oracle, working specifically with HCM solutions. So yeah, I always love the opportunity to come and talk about HR technology, and really looking forward to the panel.
Thank you. Guys, you want to go next? And here's the cat. He's here.
I am next. Anyway, good to be here again and good to see all of you. Hi to your cat. Look, I kept myself deliberately at the end because I bring in a little different perspective. I'm not a professional HR professional, but my interest in HR is because of my background. I'm an international development banker, having worked in several countries like Mitch alluded to. And a lot of my work has involved, I mean, this involves many things, but a lot of it has involved transformation and restructuring of organizations, especially in emerging markets, but also in developed countries. And the major bottleneck in that, besides so many others, is obviously the human resource. And that's something I've been grappling with well, I've been working 40 years, but let's say the last 26 years since I've been a development banker, and still grappling with it. Beauty today, or the advantage today, is that we have someone who can assist us in improving, if we want to improve the way we manage our resources, and that is technology. And I'm really interested in technology from the perspective of not only HR, but many other perspectives. Digital transformation in the financial sector mainly is my core business area or focus these days. But HR cuts through all of this. And I'll be speaking about it in more detail. I don't want to take much time right now. So that's sort of the perspective I will bring in. And of course, I'll talk about responsible innovation and responsible technology and use of technology. Again, subject of my interest.
I think that will lead right into our first topic that I want to discuss with the panel. So it's really kind of about, broadly speaking, in the field of HR tech, lots going on, lots of new innovation coming. I'd love to get your opinions, not covering everything, but just your top one or two key technologies or changes, that's most exciting that you see coming in the field of HR tech that we should all be aware of and be looking forward to. And who wants to go first? I'll sort of let you guys.
I'll start. So for me, it has become a hygiene factor now. From being a disruptor, technology being seen as a disruptor in HR field, now it has turned out to be an enabler. So one major change that technology, HR tech now is that we have become an enabler rather than a disruptor. Point number two, most importantly, it has helped in real-time decision making. So Gen Z is one of the unfortunate generation which is seeing a lot of disruption from 2008. I think they are restless. And real-time decision making helps. So HR, which was probably a shade behind on technology front, all of a sudden it has come in the forefront. Most important for me is two sides. One, HR practitioners like us would probably now talk more strategic rather than talking of transactions. So HR tech has repetitive tasks are becoming more into HR tech. They're getting inbuilt into HR tech. I'm quote unquote repetitive tasks. Other side, you see the line managers being more empathic because now they have a real-time data of, say, performance management, of, say, their attendance and other things. So we have a balance wherein line managers are becoming more towards HR because now they have been more strategic. So that is how I see HR tech as.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for those.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. I think there's two sort of mega trends that it's going to be hard to avoid talking about for some time into the future. The first, we're all talking about artificial intelligence, but I think that's a very broad, nebulous term. I think it's specifically that part of cognitive computing around machine learning. I think machine learning is going to permeate HR systems and the way we make our processes smarter and the way we make our organizations smarter for some time in the future. So that is an unavoidable disruptive technology that is going to be inescapable in the way we look at technology and how we apply that technology. And then the second thing is not really a technology in its own right. It's really an application of technology, and that's around this employee experience. And what I'm certainly seeing is we've talked about employee experience for some time, but now the tools are becoming more and more sophisticated. So we really have a great way of applying new technology and emerging technology to a very people-oriented issue, and that is in enhancing, supporting, improving this idea of the employee experience. And of course, that impacts every aspect of our organization and every aspect of the employee life cycle. So it couldn't be a more fundamental and critical aspect of our HR practitioner world.
Great, thank you. Who wants to go next? Dina?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of echo the sentiments of John. I definitely agree in terms of machine learning and the employee experience being at the forefront of technology, and the impact that that kind of technology, particularly machine learning, is going to have in our organizations is just, it's remarkable. And we've already seen it happening across a number of different organizations, and it's only really going to continue. And I agree with Vinay. I mean, automation, getting away from these repetitive tasks that we do can free us to become really more strategic and use our time a bit better. But I think, Mitch, one of the areas that I always focus on is the fact that, and I understand our panel is called HR Tech, and I understand I just launched a tech startup, so this may seem very counterintuitive for me to say, but HR Tech alone and technology alone is not the answer. And so, kind of if you look at the best and most innovative technology that's out there, if you don't have the right kind of processes, it's still going to be a nightmare for your employees. So you can automate as much as you want to automate, and you can bring in machine learning, but if you don't have the right kind of people behind the machine learning that are really looking at the data and making sure it's the right kind of data, you're auditing it for bias and all of that, essentially the technology in and of itself isn't going to work. So the processes have to be there. The digital mindset has to be there as well. Otherwise, you're just kind of implementing a great piece of technology, but not really using it. Just sort of to give you an analogy, this watch is phenomenal. I mean, it's great technology. It gives me a lot of great insights in terms of, making sure I'm more active, I'm taking the right number of steps and all of that. But at the end of the day, I still have to have the mindset to do the things. I still have to have the routine to kind of use those insights from the watch to make sure that I'm moving in the right direction. And I think from an HR standpoint, we also have to make sure that as we're bringing in this technology, we're also looking at the processes, the way we do things for the employee experience at the end of the day to be improved.
Great. And Kaiser?
Okay, so let me just add to that. So I agree with everything my fellow panelists have said, but I just like to bring it back into context. And the context is that technology, we've all admitted and we all know, is an enabler. So the question is, what is it enabling? And whatever it is enabling, it should not be enabling what has been happening over the past years, especially in terms of HR. Because if you look at HR function across the board, I mean, there are exceptions, of course, we've not really done a very good job. We've not really kicked up leaders who are leaders, right? We're in a leadership crisis in 2020. So what is it that we need enabled? So that has to come before, because technology is the easiest part of all this. You plug in AI or ML or whatever to do a certain function, which has to be the right function. And we're talking about, I mean, already Dina has alluded to biases. So we'll talk about that in more detail. I know you'll have a question down the road. So I think that is the first question. And to me, that is the primary question, that what type of KPIs are we putting in place, and do those align actually with the objective of the institution? They don't. I mean, you're HR professionals, you know that. They align more with the objectives maybe of the CEO, or what the CEO promised the shareholders. And that finds its way into the performance of frustrated employees. So we need to make sure, and Dina mentioned a bit of it, the data, that the input that is being enabled is what we need it to be enabled. And today what we have is not the right one. We know that for a fact because we have historical data for that. I leave it there for now.
Yeah. And I will add my 2 cents to the whole conversation that kind of aligns with what everybody's talking about, which is we are getting just inundated with so much data from so many different tools. It's all coming in. And I see really this big movement, Dina, kind of what you're working on, which is now it's people analytics. How do we get all of this data together into a set of reporting that people can look at? And I see big companies putting huge analytics teams together to take all this data from all these different tools and connect it and parse it and put it into reports. And I think the pivot that I see in the future is that doesn't scale. Like, it's got to be standardized and connected together and then automated across multiple companies to really make that valuable to more and more people. So that's kind of the future. I want to go to the next topic of discussion. It's something that was already brought up, this whole AI in the field of HR tech. We all know it's starting to come. We're seeing it in a few spaces. I'd love to get your opinion on kind of where do you see this applying most for practitioners in the HR field? Kind of what's most exciting? And then on the flip side, what are you most concerned about, or what should we collectively be more concerned about with regards to the utilization of AI in the HR tech market?
Yeah, Mitch, let me kick off our responses. I think AI is really pervasive across the world of HR technology. From Oracle's perspective, we really think there's three key areas where it can be applied immediately and value can be brought back to organizations. We really apply machine learning specifically to the user experience, making the user experience more personalized, intuitive, and certainly surfacing up more of a consumer type experience for our workforces. The second area is around conversational AI, rolling up dozens and dozens of single skilled chatbots, if you like, into a single standard digital assistant that is always on, always available in the same place across the applications. And we really think that idea of that digital assistant, that will actually become the new UX for a large percentage of our workforces. It will be the only thing that they interact with from an HR system perspective. And then lastly, we've been quite pragmatic about machine learning and wanting to apply it to existing business processes and make them more intelligent, more intuitive, more responsive, and to bring more efficiency back into those specific processes. So those are the areas that we've been working on already, and we're getting lots of enthusiastic uptake on those. The aspect that I think we need to be wary of, though, is, and you alluded to this, Mitch, is where artificial intelligence, machine learning is on the hype cycle itself. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it really is and how it can add value to our technology platforms. I think we're going to need to do a lot of education, and we're particularly going to need to bring back some of these expectations about it being a magical capability that can be brought to our organizations. Making machine learning work and making it really effective is hard work, and it needs very skilled professionals, and it needs a lot of activity to train the AI and to make sure we're eliminating bias. We're doing all of those other tasks that are really important to make sure it's going to produce the outcomes we want it to. So I think that's my caveat. It's early days, early in the hype circle, and lots of work to be done.
Great. Who wants to go next?
Let me, just to break the order, like John did, so we're not going in circles. Look, right. For me, AI or any technology for that matter, the biggest pain point in my view is matching skill sets with the requirements of a job. I've seen that happen time and again, that you have most of the time the wrong person for the right job. Maybe the job is also wrong, but it's not matched properly. And it's not because there's human factors which come in. Obviously, you're interviewing a person, you're looking at the CV of a person, you're seeing the guy, and he may be pretty impressive when you talk to him. But does he actually have the skills and the minute skills that are needed besides the educational skills or even the experience skills? Does he have the emotional skills? Does he have the other skills? So I think that's going to be a very important part of where technology can help. But again, coming back to the start of it, that it will only help if the input that it is enabling is also right. So we'll come to that in later. So that actually comes under strategic Vinay mentioned that you got to be strategic, and I'm a strategy person, by the way. Anything we do, you put it into a context, and you need to strategize it. So HR also needs to be strategized. What would be the strategy? So I think the first point of contact is you have an HR technology strategy in place. Like you have a digital transformation technology before you begin. You have it now. By the way, a lot of institutions started digitalization without a strategy. And, we know where they ended up. So you need to strategize it, and strategizing means identifying and prioritizing the pain points in the HR process. We are not able to use or leverage technology for everything at once. So and they may differ from institution to institution. I mean, but there are some which cut across all institutions, and this is one of them. The other use I feel of AI, machine learning, and technology generally in the HR is actually at the board level. Increasingly, we've now realized that we've said it in words many times that the board provides the oversight and they set the strategy and the direction. It doesn't really happen, and it doesn't happen because you have the wrong people sitting on the board. So how do you evaluate board directors? I think IT again, because if it gets rid of the biases, because right now you do self-evaluation or you're evaluated by your peers. So I think that would be important, because if you have the board structure right, in most of the cases, I'm not saying that the institution is in the right direction at that point in time, but it helps a lot for the institution to be pointed in the right direction if you have the right board of directors. There are many other things. I mean, we have limited time here, so I'm not going to mention all of them.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else want to talk about?
I'll just want to it's here, and is actually the one who actually holds too much into AI and everything. I just wanted to, I was just thinking, and I was talking to my friends the other day, that any AI or ML model, would it have had predicted a Nadal winning in 2020 in 2005, or a Federer surviving all these years? Any model. And therefore, I come back to the basics, that AI and ML are good to reduce the transactional bias, but there is no replacement for a human endurance and a human emotion. An Akio Morita would not have come out with a Walkman or an iPad for Steve Jobs if we were to grow on AI and ML models only. So we have to understand this, that AI and ML are working on historical data and the data that has been fed in. And we know that one of the largest organizations had to do away the recruitment process through AI and ML because it was not considering women or Hispanic or colored people and pushing out data which was biased. So this is where my input is, that AI and ML should reduce transactional biases rather than taking as an endpoint. So we have to be neither of the extremes, that we take AI ML as a god or we fear AI ML. And we should never in HR forget that there is a human element which overrides everything else.
Great, thank you. Do you have something? Otherwise, I'm going to try to get through a few more topics here. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, the only thing that I just wanted to say was, yeah, you can look at AI and you can talk about bias, but humans also are inherently biased as well. So I think we need to kind of balance both sides of the equation. There's an incredible amount of value that comes from this technology. And I want to make sure that we recognize that and we talk about the value that comes through it. And I agree, with all my fellow panelists. I think ultimately AI is there to augment, not replace human decision making. So yes, we understand that these algorithms are not perfect. And yes, we understand there's potential algorithmic bias and you need to audit it and clean your training data sets to build those ML models and all of that. But there's so much incredible opportunity if we use this technology. And I want to make sure that we focus on that kind of opportunity as well.
Great point. Great. All right. Next topic I want to talk about with everybody is data privacy. There's been a huge focus around the world on data privacy. Countries and companies, coming out with very different policies and requirements and regulations within the country. What data privacy changes do you see coming in the HR tech space, and how should we be thinking of HR tech sort of adapting to this new privacy concerns that many people have?
I'll start this one.
Yes, please.
Data privacy, again, a subject we've been talking about a lot. I don't think there are any two questions about the fact that the owner of the data is the owner of the data. So whoever data it is. Now, how that should be enabled, I know you're working on something, Mitch, on that in that area. And, in open banking and the GDPR, these things are addressed. That has to be enabled. So the data should belong to the person, whether it's HR data or banking data, whatever data it is. The second thing is that, and I think I mentioned it when we were talking offline, that's the first part of it. So the other part is that we're talking about people who've never really owned their data or never even knew that there's so much data about them. So when you own that data, what do you do with it? So you need to wrap around this a process of awareness, of literacy. Who do you provide that data to? How much do you provide? Unless that's enables to people, ownership of data is not also going to be beneficial. It's just like when you let banks loose on people who have been recently included into the financial sector and let them borrow whatever they need to borrow, and you keep giving them money. That's irresponsible lending, right? And they end up in. So similarly, you need to raise awareness of both the lenders and the borrowers of how they should be behaving when they're dealing in financial matters. Similarly, there has to be an awareness of what does an individual do with data, how is that data used. They should have knowledge of where it is stored, and what are the chances of its misuse, and what type of cyber attacks are out there. All this needs to be part of the awareness.
Yeah, and I think.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
No, please, Dana.
Okay, no, I was just going to add two quick points. One is, when you think about data and what's happening now, I mean, we're giving up our data for a lot of things constantly, and for areas that I would say are a lot more superficial, like, should I buy these shoes? Yes or no? But I think in the world of work, we could use that data to use it for a lot more important things around career pathing, development, job security, and making sure we're learning and growing within our organizations. So I think the data can be used for incredible important things, but it really comes down to two things. One is trust. I think trust is an incredibly important factor. Do our employees have trust that the organization is going to use the data for the right areas, or are they going to use it to police us and to control and kind of use it in the wrong ways, or is it going to be used for productivity purposes, for engagement, and all of that? And the second point is, am I getting value out of this data as an employee? And if I'm not getting any value out of that data that is being given to the organization, then really what's the point? There was a recent Harvard Business Review, Mitch, that kind of came out a couple of years ago that said that over 90% of employees are willing to give up their data as long as they get value out of it, as long as there's some sort of return on investment for them. So I think those two factors, trust and value, are incredibly important as we talk about data as well.
Yeah. John, you want to go?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to think all of the new privacy legislation is having on systems themselves is we're going to see a lot more work done on privacy by design and privacy by default, where we really pare back what information is gathered so that it's defensible why we're gathering that information, and a lot more of a sway towards opt-in type usage of data that has been supplied. So there'll be a lot more responsibility provided back to the employee, and a lot more responsibility and power for them to make decisions about how that data should be used, or if it should be used at all. And that's going to build up both technology will be part of that bigger governance process that organizations are going to need to adopt or don't adopt at their peril.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add my 2 bits here. It is about collaboration and not control. So that data privacy has to look from the domain of what is public and what is private. We already, all of us, are guilty of making a lot of things public. I mean, the social media tools which gave us free products made us as a product, and a lot of our information is out there in the public domain. So therefore, we have to, as HR practitioners, decide which is the line which we make it public and which is the line which we make it private. One. Secondly, no amount of GDPR rules or any rules are going to act proactively. They are all reacting to ever-evolving HR technology or technology per se. So they are only going to be reactive. By that time, the damage is already done. So we have to have a self-censorship as HR practitioners as to what data we allow as public and what data we allow as private.
Yeah, and I'll throw in my 2 cents, which is I see this data ownership flipping completely around. So I see the day coming in the near future where, you know, employees obviously care about this data, they care about what's being said about them, and if you really want to make them care more about it, they own it, and they're the ones responsible for taking that data, putting it into valuable insights about them. And then they're almost, you know, think of it as selling it back to their organization or to their employer or to a recruiter else, you know, outside of their organization or anywhere else, to use for analytics, to use for hiring, recruiting, you know, career pathing, etc. That's when people are really going to start to care. And those conversations, the coaching that you have between people, those stay private conversations. They don't ever have to be shared, and HR doesn't have to intervene in, oh, we can't say this because this is politically incorrect to say. You have to water it down so that it, you know, you're not really telling in anything that's helpful. If you keep it private, you can categorize the data, but the actual conversation never is in control or in ownership of the organization itself. It's conversation between 2 individuals who chose to have, you know, coaching session between the two of them. So that's kind of where I see it going.
Yeah, I agree, Mitch. And maybe in a couple of years' time, we should all come back because just as you're talking about ownership of each person's data, I'm thinking we're going to need to have a blockchain conversation in a few years' time when that passes past the hype cycle and is really having a really big impact on the way credentials are shared and how they are managed and how they're trusted sources. So I think it's very early days with that technology today, but in a few years' time, let's get the band back together and have a talk about it.
It's going to be interesting to see. I'm letting Yvette Cameron kind of take the lead and go create that with her group, and then we'll kind of see where it goes, because it's going to take a lot of effort to get the mind shift to change. All right, next topic I wanted to go in real quick. The number of tools that we're using in the HR tech market. So, you know, companies are using all sorts of tools. There's new startups. I think I've seen data now where the average large company has 15 or more tools in their HR tech stack, whether that's, you know, Workday, you know, Lattice, you know, some 3 or 4 training platforms, some feedback, a reward recognition platform, and it's getting, to me, a little bit out of control. So I'd love to ask the question, you know, why is this number so high? And why has the market, in your opinion, really not been able to simplify, standardize, aggregate, and kind of pull it all together? And why do we keep it separate as, you know, 10 or 15 different tools in our tech stack?
Well, I think just quickly, I think in a 2-word answer, digital transformation, I would almost say, is driving this. Because as all of our organizations go digital, of course, all of the mechanisms they want to use to have that manifest itself in their marketplace and in their organizations are digital. And there will never be one vendor to rule them all that can possibly provide those sorts of tools, particularly best-in-class tools. So I think, unfortunately, this is going to be a challenge that's going to be with us into the future. So my advice would be, though, they're going to need to talk to each other, right? All of these systems. So if any organizations are embarking down these paths of picking up multiple systems for different business purposes, boy, they better make sure they're open and they're on technology and platforms that can be integrated, and we're able to get all of those data sources for analytics. I think multiple sources is okay as long as they all talk to each other and play nicely. But I think, Mitch, what you're alluding to is when things go wrong, and that's those cases are everywhere where it causes massive problems. So I think it's inevitable, but you need to manage how that happens.
Okay. See, in COVID-19 at the start, we had a lot of information coming in, and we were just processing that information from all sources. We had all multiple information coming in, and we did not know what to process and what not to process. We had to trust everything. Same is happening now. There has been a flood of data. We have to build a dam around it. We have to channelize that. It is like a mall. That first time you go to a mall, it's a data mall. So I would like to buy from every branded or every data point, every data shop. I would want to buy something. Please, we all have limited budget and we all have end objective. So treat it as a mall and pick what is required rather than trying to be in every shop and trying to get all the data, which may tomorrow become islands of information, and you need an integrated information system.
Fully agree.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I want to echo. I mean, John and Vinay, I think they're absolutely right. But Mitch, we're talking about $148 billion market. The HR tech market is massive, and you're absolutely right in saying I think employees are completely overwhelmed. I mean, there's several different modules. You have to sign into several different platforms, and I think it was more of like a KPI checklist to say, okay, we need an employee engagement tool. Okay, we've got this. Now we need a performance management tool. Okay, we have this one. Rather than how they all kind of speak to each other. And again, that kind of goes back to my original point that I kind of started with at the beginning of this panel, which is that digital mindset and understanding how everything connects to each other and what the employee experience and journey looks like from a UI UX standpoint is really important. And once you start doing that and kind of looking at it both at a macro and micro level, then you can map that journey and look at how these tools speak to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, and HR is typically divided into all these different functions, training and, operations, L&D, compensation, et cetera. So the vendors are treating those HR functions as different customers. And so they're building solutions around learning platforms. They're building solutions around OKRs and goal setting, and they're doing a reward and recognition platform. But nobody's saying, hey, the real customer is the employee who needs not 12 different platforms. They want, I'm not even hoping for one. I mean, I'm hoping for like 3 or 4 versus 15, or it could balloon into 20 or 25 for employees who are starting to get overwhelmed by it. And Kaiser, I'm sure you've got an opinion with your technology side.
Look, all this that has been said happens. It actually happens. It's because of a lack of strategy. So until and unless you strategize your digital transformation journey, you will end up doing what is happening, and not just in HR, across the board. Yep. I've entered the boardrooms of several institutions in the past many years, of institutions who had started their digital journey, had spent millions of dollars, and were in a big mess like this because they had all sorts of solutions in front of them. Yep. So that's when you go back and say you have to have a strategy. How do you strategize? How do you prioritize which technology you need? And it's not just for the HR function, or it's not just for the digital transformation. You need a strategy around your data as well. And we can get into that, when we have the blockchain in 2 years. I think this one we can have earlier on why do you need a data strategy, and what does a data strategy mean? So this all boils, to me, being a strategy person, this is a lack of strategy.
All right, I think we may have time for one more question. So I'd love to bring up the topic of employee well-being. With COVID hitting, I think it's just become that more, mental health, employee well-being has just become a very hot topic in the field of HR tech. Right now, it's kind of its own separate entity. I'd love to get people's opinion on kind of how does this come together? How does it connect to the HR tech data structure, and kind of what are the big changes or things you'd like to see that maybe we're missing with regards to employee well-being and wellness?
Yeah, so I'll start. We had bell curve all our life. We swore by bell curve, and all of a sudden we see bell curve dying. And now we are following OKR because Google is following OKR, and everybody else is now swearing by OKR. any of the models, just look at them. Did we ever consider health, well-being, mental well-being as a part of our succession plan? Did we ever put it there? We never did it. And what has COVID taught us? That maybe your successor is not well. He is also in quarantine as much as his manager has been in quarantine. What have we done about it? So we have been reactive there. We have not taken an action there, and it is high time we start taking action there. It is okay to follow successful organizations, but successful organizations also are successful in a pretext, in a context, in an environment, and we have to take care of it. We have been missing this bus altogether.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mitch, I was just going to say as well, I mean, technology can really help in that employee well-being space. So, organizations spend on average $3.6 million a year on employee well-being. And one of the things that we've been doing, especially in the last couple of months with remote working kicking in for a lot of organizations that have plugged in the white box tool, is we're able now through technology to actually go in and identify employees that are at risk of burnout, employees that are being isolated, not being brought into meetings, employees that are not being communicated with. And you can proactively take that. And what we've seen with the organizations we've partnered with is they've been proactively been able to identify what's happening before it becomes an employee mental health or well-being issue. And I think technology can severely help us in that space.
Any other thoughts on that?
Great. Mitch, I'm slightly running out of time. I just want to say big thanks, big thanks to Dana. Thank you so very much for being here. Vinay, Kaiser, and John, and of course to Mitch for a wonderful panel discussion and very pointed questions. And of course, some of the subtopics were very interesting, especially for the current times, and especially the questions about OKR, about the tech stack, and about having so many vendors, the data mall, I mean, the privacy. I mean, and especially the one that I liked about what John spoke about blockchain in HR, and it's something that I may want to take it up with him separately some other time. Want to do something about blockchain in HR. Dana is not living too far away from us, so I think more easily reachable. I'll make sure that my team gets across to you to say a big thanks to all of you. And of course, Kaiser, if he stays put in Dubai for longer, we'll definitely be in touch because he's always all over the globe. Thank you so much, Kaiser, for being here. Vinay, John, and of course, Mitch. Thanks a lot for a wonderful panel.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very
And
much.
feel free to
Thanks,
ask.
everyone.
Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them as quick as we can.
Absolutely. There are questions already. I would appreciate, I'll touch base with each of you to try and provide insights. And it's important for our attendees to get answers from experts like you.
Thank you.
Sounds
Thanks,
good.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Folks,